Welcome to Eight Questions with. I'm your host, Patrick, and glad you're here tonight. We will be speaking with our special guest tonight. Diana Garle will be here with us in a few seconds, and cannot wait to get into it with her. She's just got a brand new film coming out called Nine Windows. And she also has another film that she's won several accolades for called the Serenade Charade that is coming out very soon as well. She is definitely a rising star, that is for sure. And quite honestly, and I hope this is okay to say, but she's got the best set of dimples this side of Jennifer Garner, and I love dimples. So I think it adds a ton of character to a face, and since Jennifer is one of my favorite actresses, so I should tell you a little bit of how I think that Diana and her career are going to extend as well. Um, I watched Nine Windows, so I got to see Diana act, and I gotta say that it's a terrific movie. Um, it definitely is a lot of fun, and I gotta tell you, if you're a horror fan, you're gonna like this movie quite a bit, a lot. Um, there are there are a couple of kills on this movie that I would match up against anything I've seen as far as in terms of a horror movie. But it does have some suspense as well, and some great acting, including by a couple of our favorite veterans, Michael Pare and the mighty William Forsythe. And what a great and I got to mention her young co-star too, Christopher Milan was also very strong as well. What's going on, brother Max? Hey, Stephen, how are you? Stephen Sheets in the house, and there's Anthony. He's up to 2004 on his memoirs. That is the year that Spider-Man 2 came out. That Anthony let us know that. Um, yeah, we are on a roll, Stephen. We are on a roll. We got some really good guests coming up here on the show. Um, I want to say real quick, two shout outs for sure. Shout out to everybody who came out yesterday to support both shows. We interviewed Roseanne McNamee from Shein, a very good fashion designer. Oh, the doorbell has rung, and you know what that means. You know what that means. That means it's go time to get our guest. Please share us out. Thank you for being here, and let's go talk to Diana.
Hi,
Ta-da! Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Well, I was really I was holding my breath because when you said you were down in Florida, and I'm going like, wow, because even when you said that you were okay, I was thinking, well, she still might need to go and help some friends or family or what have you, and that's why I mentioned when on my email, it's like, hey, if you need to do something tonight, we could always reschedule because I didn't know you were down in Florida until you told
Thank
me. I was sitting there going like, "Oh no." Um, but how was the hurricane down in your area? How was it? How did it affect you at all?
we were so lucky. I live down in the southeast by the Miami Fort Lauderdale area, and for the most part, everything was really smooth. We had some winds and stuff. There were a lot of people a little bit north of us that got hit by some tornadoes, but for the most part, we were pretty good. So we got very lucky. We got spared.
Um, a friend of mine, she did lose the top of her patio. She lost the roof of her patio. All her fencing fell down. Her fence got destroyed, and then she had a small a roof leak. Um, but everybody else that I know down there survived.
Yeah. I mean, it's super scary, and the thing is, they're so unpredictable. I grew up in Florida, so I've gone through many hurricanes, and for me, it's just one of those things that it's like you just never know. So you're just better off being safe and preparing as much as you can, and trying to get
Right.
ready as much. Yeah.
It's funny. It's really funny, Diana. It's like most of the time, whenever you see a disaster like this coming, you get a lot of people, and this is really bad, especially during fire areas, but also in storm areas like this, when most of the time they go out and they tell you to evacuate, and there's
Hmm.
so many people that just refuse to listen to that until that first wave comes through the door, or
Yeah,
the
until
or the
it's too
or the
late.
or you look outside and you see the first fire, a couple of valleys over coming your way, and then all of a sudden, it's all of a sudden becomes a major concern. Um, but I was very impressed to see so many people were actually like, we're listening this time. We're gonna
Yeah.
leave. We're not gonna take it. And so I think that saved a lot of lives this time.
Yeah, and I think as a Floridian, you kind of start having meteorologists that are like your favorite, and the people that you really trust, especially because hurricanes are, it's a yearly seasonal, so at least for me, I have one meteorologist that I'm like, if he's saying it's serious, then I have to pay attention to him. And so, and I think it was the same sentiment across the board, and I think that um, as the years have gone by, the hurricanes have gotten so much worse that they're
Mm,
just even more unpredictable than they were before. So you're just better off just like not hunkering down if you don't have to. If you're in the path of the hurricane, try and get out, try and be safe. Because you just never know. Like the hurricane that hit Asheville, it's tragic. North Carolina is like
yeah,
still recovering from that, and
yeah.
luckily,
No, go ahead.
our buildings our buildings are a little more like they're built to withstand hurricanes, but I think a lot of these buildings are not expecting what they're thinking of making a category 6 hurricane and things like that. So whatever you can do to stay safe and keep everybody around you safe. But I understand that also, evacuating depending on where you are might be a privilege because it's really far, or getting it through like really intense traffic to get out and gas and stuff. So just trying to find the safest option possible, I think, is most important.
It's interesting, because I remember the first time thinking about that when my wife and we took a vacation to Toronto, and we had the old-fashioned map, and so I opened the map up to see where we're at, and the one thing that really struck me more than anything else was there are only two main freeways in Toronto. There's one going south to north and one going east to west. That was it. Toronto's like there's like 3 million people in the Toronto area. It's a
What do you
major,
do
major. It's like
when there's something? What do you do? That's so scary.
that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, what would happen if you needed to get out of Toronto? How would you get out? There's only two freeways in and out. I mean, it was crazy to see that. I'm like, is that really the case? And it really was. You drive in there, their freeways expand like they do in LA, but there's only two of them. Whereas in LA, I mean, people talk about traffic in LA, but I tell you one thing, if you need to get out of LA, you can.
Yeah,
You can get out of there. There's a lot of ways to get out of there. But
yeah.
or Florida, it's like, well, it's sort of like that too, because
It's just
because
the
you
one
can only go
long
from south to
thing.
north.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you really can't go to east to west because you're going from one water to the other water. It's like,
yeah. Just
yeah,
to get to the next state from where I am, it's about like 10 to 12 hours, depending on how long you stop. So yeah,
wow.
it's a long time.
Our chat is here and already talking. And our friend Steven Sheets is here saying, "I hope you're having I do. I have a guest. How do we say your last name correctly? I've been saying it Garl,
Garly.
Garley. Okay, Garley. Okay, wow. I really messed up on that one.
It's
But
totally
what
okay.
else?
I never
I,
fault anyone because it's actually my stage name. It's a made up last name. It's my mom's two maiden names put together. My
okay,
mom's maiden names are Garcia Leon, so we cut it out
okay.
and put together Garly. So it does not bother me to be like, don't worry, it's okay. I'll correct
You
it.
know, most of my chat are sitting there already going, or when they come in here to see this, they'll already go like, "Yeah, what else is new for him?" Because I massacre last names like nobody's business. If you have a last name that's a little hard to pronounce, don't expect me to say it right because I will kill it. I don't know
Well,
why that is, but
no,
I'm
no hard
terrible.
no hard
Um,
feelings.
thank you so much. And Steven says that she has an amazing smile. I agree with that, Steven. For sure. I I gotta say it. I'm sure. I don't know. I hope you don't mind. Um, love the dimples.
No,
Love
thank
the.
you.
Oh my God. I'm. I was saying, man. I you know when I was watching you work, when I was watching you in Nine Windows, I saw that and I'm going like, and the first thing I think of was Jennifer Garner, and I'm like, man, maybe that, maybe she's on track for the same career that Jennifer's having. She's got
I can
skills
only hope.
already. Well, I'll tell you one thing. You definitely took a step in the right direction with Nine Windows. What a terrific movie here. Um, I got to watch it. I guess sent a copy of it. I watched it, and man, the only thing, you know what my only complaint was? I was talking to a fellow film reviewer, and my only complaint was it was too short. It needed to be
Oh,
like
well,
another it needed to be like another 15, 20 minutes long.
I
That
agree.
uh, 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 most of the time, you always hear people talk about, "Wow, the movie was too long." It's always too long. And it's like sometimes it's like, no, it's too short. I
One
want to see
makes you
some
want
more.
more, which is good. That's great. That's I think that's a great review. It's a great critique because I think you'd always want people to want more and know what happened next and what's next. Especially because it does leave with a little bit of a cliffhanger, but yeah. So that's awesome. Thank you. I'm so excited you got to see it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, Great cast. I thought you and Christopher were really good together. And a chance for you to work with William Forsythe, who is mighty, mighty. Uh,
Legend.
yes, legend. Michael Pare, legend.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I saw their names roll across there, and then I watched the movie. I'm going, like, this is a really kick-ass movie.
Thank
Lou Simone did a great job, and I just wanted it to be. I mean, I wanted to be a little longer. And I said this before he got here. It's a suspense movie, a thriller, but if you're a horror fan, there's a lot here for you to like too. A lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. In fact, there's
Definitely
one.
some juicy shots that you're just like, "Oh, I don't know if I wanna look at it or not."
Yeah, there's one shot which I'm sure everybody will know when they see it. There was one shot that had me going like, "Oh boy, that's gonna be rough for people," because people are really sensitive to that. But I'm like, you know what?
Mhm.
They needed to see it because it helped establish our villain. I mean, you
Yeah,
really like, yeah, like, most of the horror icons you ever watch, they always have a calling card, like, you know, a mask or an axe or a knife. You always know who they are based on what they're carrying. And for me, it's like for your killer in Nine Windows. Well, now we know what he's all about. Um,
yeah.
before we get into the movie itself, I want to go back. I want to go back to the start of your career, and walk all the way back up if we can. Um, so so tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of how you got started in the business. Did you get started traditionally young and doing plays in schools? Were you a late bloomer? How did you get your start?
I started very young. I started doing commercials when I was 5, 6, very, very young, and was doing a lot of modeling and stuff. My mom put me in modeling classes and acting classes, and I had a little agent for a while. And then around the age of like 8, yeah, like around 8 years old, I stopped because my mom didn't really want to feel like she was pushing me to do, this. She wanted it to be something that I wanted. And I think when I was 10, I was like, I want to do this again. And I grew up in Miami. And so down here, there's a big bilingual Latin American industry. And so my mom used the resources that she knew. So I ended up getting another agent at 10 years old, but a Spanish agent that dealt with soap operas, like telenovelas, Spanish soap operas. And so I did a lot of that kind of work growing up, especially from like my teenage years. I hosted a show on a channel where I would just like read books to kids and was doing more like hosting work. And I wanted to do more English acting work. So when I was 17, I applied for a high school summer program with NYU that was in Dublin in Ireland. Like it was an abroad program. And I was able to get in on a full ride. And so I was able to go to Dublin and act over there for a little while. And that just like reignited my love for acting and for why I love to do it. And specifically theater, which I think is the fundamental basis when it comes to finding characters and the exploration of how you dig deep into a role, which later translates into film. So then I came back from Dublin and I did a lot of union theater for about 5 years. Kind of got my feet wet there, built up a resume, and then I was like, it's time to go back to TV and film. And yeah, since then I've done a few Hallmark movies. I've done a lot of rom-coms, things like that, and recently a lot of thrillers and suspense films, which I think I'm finding that I love most because they're so fun and they're, a lot of people don't realize how many levels and layers go into these characters, especially when it's a thriller, when it's a suspenseful film. And these films are meant to watch multiple times. They're meant to be seen so that you go back and you're like, oh, I didn't see that, but now I see it, and I love that part of doing thriller, horror, suspense films. So yeah, so I've been doing it basically my entire life.
So yeah, so you've been, yeah, from what you said, you've been around and done a lot for someone so young.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you so much.
uh, yeah, the Hallmark thing. How many movies? How did you get into the Hallmark thing? Because most of the time their films are done in Canada. So how did a Floridian actress get cast in Hallmark movies?
Well,
Was that your agent, or did you audition?
yes, I did audition, but there was a time. So I unfortunately one day I'll hopefully do a Christmas movie because I feel like that's just a rite of passage if you're doing Hallmark. But there was a big time in like Florida film wise that they were doing a lot of Hallmark movies for their summer series here in Florida. And
Oh,
so
okay.
we shot actually by where the hurricane hit in St. Pete and Tampa, in a little town, super cute town called Safety Harbor. So they had a lot of like film incentives over there on that side of the state, and so they shot a couple movies there. And then I shot a film that's supposed to be coming out next year that we're not sure if it's going to be on Hallmark or not, but it's very similar, very rom-commy. And that we shot in on a farm here in Miami, but it made it look like we were in Fiji. So it was really incredible, the magic of television and filmmaking. You can be anywhere and make it seem like you're in a completely different part of the world. So thankfully, yeah, I've most of those things I shot down here, but I am bi-coastal. So I do travel a lot. I go back and forth from here to LA. Miami's home base, but I'm in LA pretty often. I was just there last week. And then I do, film some stuff in Atlanta every once in a while, things like that.
Right, Atlanta being the next Hollywood, so to speak. It's been growing rapidly every year. For
Yeah,
so that must be sort of nice knowing that hopefully soon that maybe you won't have to go to LA every time. Now you can just go to Atlanta, like if you get a TV series or what have you, you can
yeah,
just
that's
go
the
there.
goal. That's the goal, and
Yeah,
it's so much closer to home. My mom is down here, and it's just her. So I'd like to I like to be close enough that I'm able to like check in on her as much as I can.
sure, sure. That's great. Your mom, I really what I loved about that story about your mother about when you starting. I love the fact that she stopped.
Yeah,
She stopped and says, "Wait a minute, maybe this is not what Diana wants. Maybe Diana wants to do something else." So she stopped it. A lot.
yeah, I lost you there.
Let me step out and come back. Volume. Hold on.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
All right, there we go. Uh, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so what happens is if I get a phone call coming in while I'm doing this, it knocks my volume down, so I have to step out and come back in. My brother's calling me because we're both big Yankee baseball fans, so he's calling up to talk about the game. Um,
Oh,
but I'll call him as soon as we get done here. But I like the fact that you're like I said, I like the fact that your mom said, and and the fact is you're 10 years old, right, when she stopped it.
yeah. I was around 8. Yeah, I went back into it.
Yeah, and so do you remember how she explained it to you? Did
I
she
don't
say you
think she really explained it to me until I asked her why I wasn't doing it anymore.
Oh, okay,
So, like,
okay.
she took me on, and slowly, like, I stopped going, like, I stopped having less and less auditions, and I think a part of it, it's when you're kids, when you're on set, it's so long.
Mhm,
It's a lot of work, and it's very time consuming for both the parent and the child. And, like, I was in school, I was being taken out of school and stuff. And I think that she thought maybe I was getting a little overwhelmed. And so once I told her, later on, I was like, why am I not getting auditions? Like, I think it like clicked in me that I'm like, I haven't been getting auditions. Like, I haven't been on set. Why? And she was like, oh, well, I didn't know if you liked it or not. I didn't want to be like, continue to force you to do these things. And I was like, "Oh, no, I love it. Please put me in." And I've been really fortunate because she really is my biggest fan, and she's just been my biggest supporter in all of this, and just making sure that, like, I follow my dreams in whatever capacity that I need to do. So she's great, great mom.
um, so you mentioned you got that, you applied to the school in Dublin to go over to go to Dub did you get to go to that? Did you fly over to and stay in Ireland?
Yeah, I did. I did for a few months. At the time they had a summer high school abroad program. And it was they had them everywhere. They had one in Paris, one in Singapore, one in Dublin, and one in New York City for musical theater. And I really wanted to focus on just like acting. And so the one that was mostly with that was in Dublin, and I was able to go and be there for a long time and learn from, I took classes with some greats over there. I got to see shows at the Abbey, and it was just so incredible being able to be there and create a show while I was there, and just kind of get out of my shell in a very, very much a culture shock, but in a really beautiful and enriching way.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, that'd be a beautiful place to go to. Dublin's a pretty hot town right now, from what I understand.
It's,
Uh, and so how much fun is that?
it
Um,
was
and
fun.
now, as far as going to the live theater, had you done any theater at all until you had gotten to, and before you had went there? Did you do anything beforehand, or was that your introduction to theater?
I'd done it in school, but nothing professional yet at that point. Yeah. So I had been doing it in school for my entire life. I went to a school that it's a charter school, so it was the same teachers, same classmates from the time I was in elementary school till the time I graduated. So it was one of those things that it was like I was the drama kid in school, and I was always doing theater, and I was the drama club president, and all of that. I really enjoyed. I've always enjoyed every aspect of this career, whether it's behind the scenes and stage management and or theater management, or even on the production side and the film side. Like, I love editing and I love doing all those things. They've always fascinated me. So any way that I could kind of sink my teeth into things and learn, I was always about it. So yeah.
What was your first professional play?
My first professional play was right out of high school. It was for a
Mm,
TYA contract, which is a theater for young audience, and it was a show called The Red Thread that was an original play, and
nice.
it was great. It was beautiful, and we had over like 4,000 kids come see the show during the run, which was so amazing. I think that if, especially for young actors, if you have a chance to do children's theater, I think it makes you grow so much, because you get a side of an audience that you don't normally get when you're doing very heavy theater and very heavy material. And it's just really, it helps you exercise that muscle of like not breaking on stage and not doing anything that like might be too controversial for the kids. So it's a very exciting. But I was with this theater company. They're called Miami Theater Center, and at the time they were a rep theater. So they basically hired actors for their full season, which was wonderful because it was union. So I got healthcare. I got a lot of benefits to being at this theater. And so they would mostly do children's theater, like children's plays, but then they later graduated, did a lot of they did Anton Chekhov, so we did Three Sisters. I was in that. They did Hedda Gabler, so a lot of classics, like reimagined classics, is what they would do. They no longer produce their own work, but they're still around, and they are more of a touring house now.
Okay. Okay. Everybody's saying hello. Our friend Renee is here and saying hello to you, Diana.
Hi.
Not sure if YouTube is bugged. Yeah, YouTube has been sort of freaky the last few couple of weeks. And so is Instagram. Actually, I've been trying to follow you on Instagram, and every time I follow you, then I turn around and it comes back and it's kicked me off again.
Oh, that's
So, but that is weird.
yeah.
It is very weird. I'm like, okay, that's but I'm sure it's just a bug they'll fix. Um, so as a young actress and very young, you got to experience a lot of actors who don't get into the business till their teens or a little later, but you got to see a lot of that early on, like auditioning
Yeah.
and not only getting the part, but not getting the part. So
Yeah.
you got experience about how to handle both your success and not so. Um, knowing what you know now, if you had a daughter like yourself, you had a daughter, would you encourage her to do the business? Would you do exactly the same thing your mom did, or would you do it a little bit differently in terms of child acting?
Um, it depends. I think that there was so much merit to putting me into modeling classes and acting classes when I was younger, because I was so shy. And in general, I still consider myself an introvert, but I think there's so much merit to putting kids in situations where they learn how to speak for themselves and learn how to use their voice and advocate for themselves. And also, I think the theater and acting in general really encourages critical thinking and thinking outside the box and taking risks. So, in that sense, I really think that I would encourage them to take classes. And then if they want to audition and things like that, then at that point, I would maybe wait until they're able to tell me that they want to start auditioning, or they want to be on TV, or they want to do whatever. But I definitely wouldn't discourage them from that. I do feel so grateful that my mom never discouraged me from anything that I wanted to do. In terms of in the arts and whatever career path that I wanted from the young age. It was like, whatever you want to do, let's nurture that. Let's figure it out. Let's find out how to let you learn from it. So I don't know if I would not do it, but I think that I definitely find the benefits of just even being able to, I think that especially at a young age, learning how to act and learning how to deal with your emotions and really compartmentalize, like, why am I crying, and why is this feel like, in doing it in a character, it's really nice to be able to self-reflect on yourself, and like, oh, well, this is what helps me feel this, and this is why I feel this. And I think that especially as a young kid, it's so important to be able to acknowledge and recognize these feelings and these emotions, especially while you're growing up, when there's so many different things, like your hormones and everything's going crazy. So being able to really just take a step back and be like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this. It's okay. So yeah, I think I would.
Um, as a what do you think would be better for a young actor? Someone 8 to 10 years old. What would you recommend? What do you think was more beneficial to you to go to work on the stage or to work on film? And what would be your reasons why is one's better than the other?
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, I think there's two. I think that both of them, both of these industries, especially the theater industry and the screen industry, both are industries that thrive off of teamwork and ensemble, and also patience. But I think that in particular with theater, you really learn the value of teamwork and working as a team and working as a cast together, and it's so valuable in terms of being able to uh, just hone those skills of working together. Whereas I think the film industry, the biggest value is the idea of patience. And I think especially as a kid, it's so tough to be
Yeah,
patient. I mean, even for me, as however old I am now, like being patient is always very difficult. And really, I really enjoyed when I was on set. I've always loved being on set more than on stage. I love being on stage, but I think on like being on set is my happy place. And I always enjoyed being on set and actually waiting around, but being able to see everybody and see the ant farm that it takes to put what I thought was so simple on screen. So I think they both have merits. But I think for me, I loved being on set, but I think that in terms of personal growth, critical thinking, I think theater is a good avenue to start with in terms of classes and in terms of having them have access to this industry.
now the one name we've talked here for a little bit, but the one name that we have not mentioned, which is sort of strange to me, but we're going to get to it now. But the one, dominant name when you think of, when you think of kids acting, and also Florida is Disney. So, did you ever work on any Disney projects? And what's your opinion about Disney?
I would have loved to be on a Disney project. I could tell you that when I was younger. Um, but I think around the time where they were casting all of those things, I was doing more Spanish soap operas and stuff. So um, my agents didn't necessarily have access to those auditions. So I think that I was kind of strayed over towards the Latin American industry. I think I would have loved to do it, but I would be very interesting to see where my career would be now had I done that.
Mhm.
I do know a couple of people that have been on Disney Channel shows and they loved it and then they stopped acting,
Yeah,
or they loved it and then heard the horror stories. We've also heard the success stories like the Selena Gomez's and the Zendayas and and the Zac Efrons. So I mean, I would have loved to, and I would have loved to, I always like to imagine what my life would have been like had I been quote unquote discovered around, as at a young age. But I am so grateful for the path that my career has taken because I feel I've been able to build a very well-rounded skill when it comes to the
mhm.
kind of work that I put out.
I agree. I think your body of work is I think it's very interesting. I mean, you worked on some really cool projects on here,
Thank
including the one that's come.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, Fairy Dust. I see you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I realize I just have access to be able to see the comments now. So if I catch it in the comments, I will answer whatever question or whatever you guys want.
Okay, yeah, he he's really energetic. I know it's about baseball. I know it's about the baseball game. So, but the movie I mentioned that looks really interesting to me is, and you've won several awards for this, the Serenade Charade. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Uh,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, but the rest of the film that you've done, some of the films that you've done, talk to us a little bit. I want to talk because okay, this is I'll admit this. Everybody in my chat already knows this, so this is no big secret. But I'm a Hallmarky. I love Hallmark movies. So yeah, that's true. So talk to us a little bit about your experience. In working with Hallmark. How old were you when, or you don't have to give the specific age, but in terms of your career, how old were you, or experience wise, when you got to do the Hallmark movies? And what movies did you work? How many movies did you work on?
I did one main movie that I was like a pretty big role. I wasn't the lead, but I was a supporting lead, so I'm in the majority of the movie. It's called Love in the Sun, and it was such a fantastic ride. We shot for about a month down at Safety Harbor on the west coast of Florida, and everything, it all feels very Hallmark when you're on the Hallmark sets. It's very polished and clean, and like I even everything is so thought out in such a well crafted way. For example, just everything that we wore. I mean, normally, every wardrobe stylist thinks to the T, but every single network exec is involved at every process of the film, which I think is really what makes it such a family oriented kind of company. So I really enjoyed working on that. I played the lead's best friend, and we actually ended up becoming very, very close after that. I stayed with her in LA a bunch. Right now, I think she's in London right now. But we became very close. So it was definitely was an environment that was very welcoming, very family, very, very Hallmarky. Everything that you would expect a Hallmark movie would be, on film. It's the same thing behind the scenes. Everyone's so sweet and so supportive, and I was so grateful that they gave me a chance, because it is a relatively really big role. And at the time, I had done a lot of theater, and I had done a lot of I do a lot of commercial work. So I had been doing a lot of commercial work, but I was trying to get back into the film world, and this was one of the first big films that I had again in the like restart of my career. It was back in 2019. So it was a great time, and I learned so much, and I was so nervous because it was like one of the biggest things that I had done so far, and it was just such a treat to work on, and it felt very Hallmarky to be on it. Everyone was so great and so nice, and
Now, you mentioned about the modeling and the commercials. They say that commercials are, you do the TV shows or the movies for the experience, but you do the commercials for the financing of those. That. Yeah, I have read many actors who have written about their careers, and you read them and you read about them, and they're sitting there how they got a small part here, a small part there, but then you see it literally through the pages of the book how excited they were when they got a commercial. I landed this commercial, I landed that commercial, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, thank God I can pay my rent for a year, all based on the one commercial. Now
right,
that enables me to go out there to do, enables me to do more auditions, do more stuff that I want to do, instead of worry about working all the time and whatnot. So commercials are very underrated. Do you agree with that? Do you think commercials are underrated as far as an actor's toolbox? I mean, do you did you ever find yourself audition? Because I've never asked this question actually. 500 episodes. This is the first time I ever asked this question. But did you audition for commercials? Did you have to
yes.
go on audition for that?
Yeah,
Wow.
and they're actually, I think, a lot harder to audition for than an actual film, because you don't get real fleshed out characters. You just get a type. You know what I mean? It's the quirky brunette, or the nerdy girl. So you have literally 15 seconds to make an impression with 2 lines. So I feel like I do think that they're very underrated and they're so fun to do. You know, for the most part, a commercial will be a 1 day commitment, or if you're lucky, it'll be like a week commitment, depending on what it is. But I think that not only does it help in terms of exposure, but I think it gives you the opportunity to get a feel for what it's like to be on a set, because that can feel very stressful if you've never done it before. Especially for people that are just trying to get into the industry, doing a commercial is a great way to get your foot in the door and see if you actually like it, because it's a lot of waiting around. Everything that you do on set, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. And so with commercials, it's very much that. You get ready, you're there at 6 in the morning, they do your makeup, and you're not even on set until like 2 in the afternoon. But it's a good time, and it I think it's a nice way to flex your skills, because every commercial is different, every character is different, and every intention that you have for each commercial is different. So, like, currently in Florida, I'm like the spokesperson for one of the for an insurance company down here, and I do it. I have 6 spots, 3 in Spanish and 3 in English, and it's so fun. It's such a quirky little character, very much like Flo from Geico, or no, from Progressive, not Geico. Flo from Progressive, but it was wonderful. I had such a great time on set. We actually, that was an anomaly. We were able to shoot our whole 6 commercials because I had a green screen in like 4 hours. And it's like, I see my face every day on TV, which is really like a nice little inspiring thing as well. Just to be able to like, be like, okay, this is a constant reminder that like, I'm good enough to do what
Right.
all the other more,
You
the
must
serious projects.
you must get recognized instantly. Um, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you got such a beautiful face, and I gotta say it again because it's true. But you got those awesome dimples. That's right. That's right. So you're instantly recognizable. I mean, I would know you if you walked across the street and I saw you and you were talking to someone and smiled. I know exactly who you were. Does that happen to you? Does that happen to you a lot in the public? Do you get recognized quite a bit for your
Not
commercials?
very often. I think when the Hallmark movie came out in 2019, because it actually their turnarounds were really fast. So we shot it in like I think we shot it in like April, and it was out by June.
Yes, isn't
Really
it
fast.
insane?
Yeah, really, really fast. Whereas Nine Windows, we shot in 2021, and it's just coming out. So it always depends. You never know how long post production is going to take. But yeah,
I have a friend who's directing Hallmark movies now, and she's just getting into. She just finished her second one, and she she's literally filming the movie. She's saying, "Okay, I'm going to work," and then like a week later, she's like, "Okay, we're gonna be airing on like in April. We're gonna do,
yeah,
she's working the first part of April and says, "Okay, the movie comes out the end of May," and I'm
yeah.
just like, how do you get from point A to point B so damn fast?
It's
I, I,
it's
I
it's telling you, they're so polished, they're a machine, they know what they like, and they're just like, "This is it," and it's one of those things that I have to believe that they, as we're shooting, they're choosing the shots that are gonna be, on, in the final cut, because it is quite fast.
I mean, I've seen low budget films and they'll get in there and they'll say like I mean I knew one director who Matt Eskandari who he said he was filming a movie and he had an A-list cast. He had Bruce Willis, he had Jesse Metcalf, and he had a couple of others, and he shot on this big ass barn. And he says, "Yeah, I turned that over in 9 days." I'm thinking, "Wow, my God, 9 days! How do you do that?" I
Yeah,
mean, he's like, "That's so insane," because you're so used to seeing like someone like a Kevin Costner, and he goes out there and he's like, "Okay, we're filming in January, and we're gonna wrap up in July."
July,
That's
right.
what you expect, right? You expect that big old long shoot, and it's like, no, we did it in 9 days. I'm like,
Well,
"God,
Nine Windows was actually shot in like around 2 weeks, I think was I don't remember exactly how many days it was, but I believe think it you can ask Lou when you see her next week, but I believe we shot in 12 days. So
dude.
very
Yeah.
fast. Yeah, very
Well,
fast.
you know what? Most of your characters, though, you only had really you had three main characters and three support. So I mean, I guess so there wasn't like a huge cast,
No,
but but still, regardless, right?
yeah,
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about that, about your about some of the projects you did. I talked to you about the Hallmark movie, and I agree. I think you should get back to doing that. That's for sure. Oh yeah, you'd be really good at that. That'd be fun. But you're saying you love horror and thrillers and suspense movies. So what was your first movie that you did that you would consider a horror?
hmm. That is a good question. Let me go. I'm like trying to go back. I think Nine Windows was one of the first ones where it was like straight horror, where I had a bigger part. Um, so I think Nine Windows was really what sparked my love for it. I'd done little short films here and there that were horror, but the first feature, like long form film, was Nine Windows.
Now,
So
what was the process like for you, Diana, for that role? I mean, at the time you auditioned for it, you weren't really known for horror or thrillers or suspense, were you? I
no,
mean,
I did a lot of dramatic,
mm,
very hallmarky, very either very lighthearted, like I was the quirky friend, or very dramatic, where I'm like, ugly, crying, sobbing. Which there is some of that in Nine Windows, but not not to that extent. The story is quite interesting. I was doing a film during COVID with a friend of mine, and it was a film that it was about COVID, and it was during COVID, and we shot it. Every character in the film is called Negativity, and every character in the film actually shot their scenes completely by themselves with the director to avoid contamination. We were all under quarantine and stuff, so he actually shot the film in my house, in my room. And I did the entire, like, I'm having a dialogue with a couple people, and the whole thing I did like in silence. Like, he would either feed me the lines that the other characters were saying, or I would just imagine what the other characters were saying. And so I had done that film, and that film actually was ended up being, yeah. So we shot Nine Windows in like March 2021. So I believe it was February of 2021 that that we were having a screening, like a premiere of Negativity. And in that premiere, Lou, who was the director of Nine Windows, actually was she came to see it. And in the film, it was I play this really young, kind of naive young girl who's in love with this guy who's like just into really shady things. And
mhm.
I have a pretty funny scene where I'm like half crying, half laughing, like really neurotic and kind of crazy. And but I was quite proud of it. I think it's a pretty funny scene, but it's meant to be a little. It's a very dramatic. It becomes a very dramatic scene towards the end. And basically, she came to see the film. I met her briefly at the premiere of that film, and then I believe it was like 2 weeks later, the director of Negativity, reached out to me saying that he had spoken to Lou about me, and how she was looking for somebody that could have like a lot of emotional depth, and someone that could fit the role of Liza. And she originally wanted to have somebody that was actually in a wheelchair. Liza's in a wheelchair.
Right.
Do you guys hear him? I'm so sorry. he's
Uh, uh, Someone's
he's
stealing scene from you right now.
yeah, he's stealing. Let me. I don't know what's happening.
He's stealing
He's stealing my thunder. Um, so
what's your cat's name?
my cat's name is Weasley. I have a cat and a dog, but I think so I have a studio set up, and
Mhm.
he loves to come into the studio because I have a really nice carpet, and he likes to like roll around in the carpet. So I'm so sorry.
No, no, well, oh my gosh, you kidding me? If you look up on your screen there, you'll notice that there's a small cheetah there in the corner. So we are, if we're not anything here, 8 questions with, We are very much cat friendly.
Good. um, so Lou ended up contacting me. She wanted to originally have somebody who was actually in a wheelchair, and
Mm,
she had somebody, and then that fell through, and they were like 2 weeks away from, or less than a month away from starting principal photography. And so
no,
she was like, I need to find somebody that I know that I can rely on, that's good, that I've seen already on screen. And so she'd reached out to Jonathan, who was the director of Nine Windows, and I mean of Negativity, and he spoke to her about me, and then she reached out to me, and I had like a very quick audition, and within like 2 days about she'd gotten back to me about wanting me for the role. So that was very exciting. I had
yeah.
read the script for the audition. I asked to read the script. So I had read, I don't think she sent me the full script, but she had sent me like about 60% of it. And she told me that it was a retelling of Rear Window. And so I loved Rear Window. I had seen it in like high school. So I was like, this is great. A Hitchcock remake, like how cool, with a modern retelling where like the lead is a female. Like this is awesome. So I was very excited. And immediately I was like, well, I need to make sure that I have this wheelchair game down. So when she cast me, I was like, do you have the wheelchair? And so she was like, I actually do. So the next day I drove to her house and I picked up the wheelchair, and then I had about 3 weeks before we started filming, and I just spent those entire 3 weeks just rolling around in the wheelchair while running my lines. So I would learn my lines while I was on the wheelchair, so that I would make sure that I can like maneuver it, and I can, and I would, and I really wanted, I really wanted to make sure that I did it justice, even though she doesn't completely lose her abilities in her legs. I wanted to make sure that I did it as authentically as possible, which is actually, I underestimated how difficult that would be.
Oh,
Um,
I
because
bet, I bet by the end of the shooting, though, you got Popeye forearms, didn't you?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did. But also, you don't realize how like little movements, little twitches that you do without even noticing, like even talking. Like I just kind of move my legs while I'm talking. I'm very like a physical person, so I move a lot. And so when I was trying to get it together, basically I had to like tie my legs so that I would stay as stiff as possible.
Okay.
Um, but it was an interesting process getting there. And then we shot in Orlando, and we shot the whole film is completely shot on a virtual reality stage on Unreal Engine set, which is really cool. And it's actually the first film in history, the first feature film, like long form film, that is shot completely on a virtual stage. And we shot it at the Full Sail Studios up in Orlando.
I mean, the stage that you were on there was nothing there.
Nothing there. It's all virtual. So the entire film is all on, like, it's all a computer screen behind me,
Oh,
except for
that's
like
so
the
weird.
actual props that I have in my hands. It's
Oh, that's
really,
so
really
weird.
awesome. And it's, yeah, it's kind of like the coolest thing about this film. It's like, and if you didn't know, it makes it even cooler, because that means you
Wow.
truly can't tell that it is
No,
completely a virtual stage. So that was a complete adjustment, because it went from, I'm used to doing theater where a lot of sets are 2D, and you just kind of imagine it. But then
right.
mostly when you do films, it's a lot of practical sets. It's very, it's, you're in a house, and you're in the kitchen, and you're in,
Right.
whereas this, it was just an entire screen, like an LED screen,
Oh, that's so weird.
and maybe like a desk, and that was all we had. And
That's what
with the
I'm sort of. I don't know how I feel about that. It's sort of really weird. That
It's
is.
it was very strange, especially at the beginning. Especially like even this is not a real spoiler, but there's a car. It's in the trailer. So there's a car accident, and even the car accident scene was in this sound studio on a virtual stage. So they brought the car into the virtual stage, and it's quite interesting because the camera is connected to a computer, is connected to like the virtual stage computer, so the dimensions of everything changes as the camera is moving. So even though I'm on set, I'm feeling the world behind me shift depending on how close the camera is to me or not. So it's
Like
really
when you're sitting there and you're facing the 9 monitors you're looking at. So when you did that, there's nothing in front of you,
there
or
was
there is.
well there was a monitor, so there were actual practical props like the monitor, the desk. There were those things, but behind it, so everything that was the actual house or the outdoor part, like outdoor sections, or even the attic, all of the sets. Um, it was a big. It was it. They we had a photo of what it looked like, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I really like too about Loose Choice, and I'm wondering if you had if you had some input into this Liza's character. Um, did you? Because one thing I noticed right away was the wheelchair itself. The wheelchair itself was a basic wheelchair, and I thought that was an interesting choice. Like it wasn't one where you wrote, it wasn't a big fancy one.
Yeah.
And I like the choice. I like the idea that it was a regular wheelchair, just a real basic one, because it's telling us that yes, you are hurt, you are recovering, you're having a hard time, but but you're not going to be in that chair forever, even though you may seem like it, but having that choice of chair there is telling us, like, she's not going to be there right now. She's feeling sorry for herself. She's feeling a little of some misplaced guilt, survivor's guilt, though, but one day she's going to wake up and realize that she's got to go forward the best she can. I mean,
Yeah.
and so I like that choice. Like you're there just rolling in a basic wheelchair instead of the super motorized one. Did you have
Yeah.
any input? Did you have any input into that? Into what kind of wheelchair you were going to use, and exactly what your attitude was going to be toward the wheelchair and your injury.
So so in terms of deciding the wheelchair that I used on set was the same wheelchair that I was practicing in. So that was very important to me, that I would have the chair, whatever chair it was, that I would have it to be able to maneuver it as authentically as possible. So that's in terms of having any input in what the chair would be. That was all I asked for. I was like, I just would really like to have the chair that I'm going to use. And then in terms of the injury and her relationship with it, I actually have been in quite a few car accidents that were pretty tragic. That, like, people died and gotten very hurt and things like that. And it was a lot about, for me, it wasn't it the wheelchair was a representation of losing the people in my life that I loved the most in terms of the film. So the more I sat in that chair, it was kind of like a blanket of like sulking and depression. So for
Yeah,
me, that was really important. That, like, um, that chair was a big representation of all the things that I had lost. In the film, it's my parents and my aspiration. She goes from being in one of the happiest days of her life to losing everything that she thought she was about to have in her future, and her being very young, and kind of having to adjust to that, in such a harsh, cold bucket of water kind of way. And that was I think the chair was a representation of everything she'd lost. So it
yeah,
was,
like a
she didn't
prison.
want to lose it either. She
Yeah,
wanted
like,
to be in control of the next thing that she lost, I think.
you have a really sharp co-star in the film, Christopher Milan.
Yeah.
Um, how now you got the role real quick. Did you do any audition tests or chemistry tests with Christopher before shooting, or was Lou's instinct still correct in saying these are my two leads? I'm going to go with these two.
Uh,
How,
I'm sure Lou will give you the full story in terms of her with Chris, but she'd actually done a film with Chris, so Chris had been already cast in the film before me. I was actually the last person to sign on. So there were no chemistry tests. I met Chris the first day he was good. Oh no, I think he came in a day early. So I came Jason, what who plays our villain came in and did a lot of the kind of the villainy scenes. I don't know want to give too much away, but the
Mhm.
the scenes that I'm not in first, which was pretty awesome because then I got to watch them real time sometimes with shooting. So it was pretty cool. I got to watch rough cuts. So he came in, and then I came in first, and then I had a couple days, or I had like 1 or 2 days where I shot a lot of the scenes that I had alone. And then in those days, Chris came, and I met him, and it was just like, we hit it off very quickly. He's very very funny, and we just spent a lot of time just joking around and hanging out, and we also just knew that it was like we either get it together or we don't get it together, because we don't have the enough time to really like build that bond that you normally would. So we're just like, we got a bond right now, like open
Oh
a
my
beer,
god.
let's hang out, kind of
That's
thing.
that's really that's it just shows you because you guys had so much chemistry together right away. You could just sense it. If we didn't know what you just shared with us, anybody who's watching the scenes with you and Christopher, you would have thought that you have known each other for years. Um,
Oh,
real quick
he's
question
like a good friend.
without one quick question without giving too much away. You mentioned how Jason came in and did his scenes. Did they do
Yeah,
practical effects for his scenes? Was that practical? What
yeah,
he was doing? Okay, I had a yeah. And
yeah,
again, I'm gonna say this too. Anybody who loves a good Hitchcock film or a castle film, a suspense mystery, this movie has all that. Um, but this movie too has some awesome horror elements into it. It is a half of a horror film. There are two kills in this movie that I said before you got here. There's two kills in this movie that I would match up against any modern horror film that you could think of. And yeah, and that includes our good friend Art the Clown. I think Art the Clown would be sitting there and taking a couple of notes on a couple of these kills. Very, very well done. Very well done. And I'm sure it's going to be one of the things that you'll be covering during your press
yeah.
is some of the company, which is what did you think when you saw some of the action that that our villain was doing? Was it something you're going like, oh hell no, or was it something you're going like, well that's interesting?
Well,
How did you react to his scenes?
my first day on set, I got to watch one of those scenes in person, and very very briefly, because they actually didn't want me too much to see them, because
Mm,
they were like, we would rather you imagine the horror that's happening than watch them do it practically, right? We don't, And I was like, okay, sure, that's fine. But I walked in, and I remember there being like a lot of like fog and smoke, and seeing something from far away and being like, whoa, it looks so real, even on set, that I was like, okay, I'm walking out. But something really interesting is there's a scene where I'm watching something really insane happen, and Lou was like, you know what? Let's play it for her while she's doing the scene. So I had no idea that I was about to actually start watching what I'm supposed to be seeing. Like normally it's just like a green screen, or it's something just like it's black or whatever. I don't see what's going on. And my reaction for it is real time. Oh my goodness, this is actually happening. What's going on? I can't believe it. And
oh,
I like started hysterically crying because I didn't
oh,
expect that was what was going to be seen. And
yeah.
it was very scary,
Oh yeah, very very scary, very scary. Very. I mean, I'm sitting there going like, I'm watching this and going like, Jesus Christ. I mean, I was like impressed, and I'm going like, I'm like, she's that's just this movie. This movie's a sleeper right here. People are they're sleeping on it. They're gonna need to come watch this one because it's pretty intense. It's really intense. Um, well, one of the things too I noticed, and I was interested in your choice if this is something that you and Lou came up with. But when we first meet your character, um, like she is very unhappy, but she seems to be striking out at a lot of people. How did you feel? Did you, how did it feel to because there's one subplot there that where you know you almost become Jason. You're that far
Yeah,
away from joining him. As far
yeah.
as being him. How did that how intense was that? How intense was that for you, where you discovered just how powerful words have an effect on somebody when you're playing that key scene? Because if when we first meet you, your character is in self-pity, and she's not very likable at first.
No,
Um,
she's
not her for no, and but she definitely has a lot of redemption. And without going into any detail, I'm just gonna say you guys gotta watch Nine Windows for this because this movie's a banger. I'm telling you. It's definitely gonna be top 20 for me for this year. Um,
oh, that's so
oh my
exciting.
god, yeah, no, I'm telling me and my friend, Mike, we were talking about it. We were talking about the film and the elements of it, and he felt the same way I did. He felt like, it needed to be a longer movie. Like, yeah, it needed to be longer. It needed to be. I want to see more of the characters. Um, but your character initially isn't that likable at first. Um,
Yeah.
how did you get into that mind frame of playing someone who maybe not, maybe striking out blindly, didn't mean to do it, but striking out blindly. Is she the most difficult person you've ever played in your career? Like in terms of depth and emotion and heartbreak? She's been the most intense character you've played so far?
At the time of shooting, yeah. I think since then I've done the Serenade Charade has a lot of layers like that as well, which has been my second really difficult role that I've been very proud of. But in terms of Liza, I think that I really made sure to, I think for me it was important at the time to not see her as a bully. She very much can come off as a bully, and very mean. And I think it was very important for me to like advocate for that and to take it instead of thinking of I'm gonna be mean or I'm being mean. It was taken from like a sense of grief and exhaustion. I think it became I think her reactions to things all came for hello, little cutie. Her reactions were oh my goodness, so cute. Um, yeah, her reactions were always something that came out of her own grief and her own depression, and it even though they came across towards people, they were never a reflection on the people. They were more a reflection on her and her unhappiness. And it's that tale as old as time that like you find out that the bully was being bullied the whole time, but it's not necessarily that she was being bullied. It's she just had so much unprocessed grief that she was going through. um
Mhm.
and it was she didn't get to it was like her way of mourning the life that she didn't have. And
Yeah.
I don't think she went about it the correct way. But which I think is why it strikes her so much when she realizes what she's doing, because
Yeah.
that's the last thing that she would have wanted. But I think that it was her way of dealing with the grief that she had going on at the same time.
I want to talk a little bit about the Serenade Charade, but we can't go without talking about your interactions with two legends, Michael Pare and William Forsythe. So crazy good. Love William Forsythe so much. He's done so many great movies. What was it like when you learned that you'd be doing scenes with those two actors? What was your first reaction to that?
I didn't know until 2 days before I got on set. So 2 days before I get on set, I just happened to see the cast list, and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "No." And I remember I texted Lou, and I was like, Are you serious?" Like, or it wasn't that I saw the cast list. I think they made like a post on Instagram, or they released the cast, and I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was like, "Oh my god!" And I was very intimidated. I was like, "How am I didn't even." I wasn't mentally prepared, and now here I was about to get on set, and it was such a treat, and it was so inspiring to work with both of them. So Michael was actually only on set for 1 day. We shot all of his scenes in 1 day. And talk about a pro. He came in, he was ready, one take wonder. We did things for safety, not necessarily because he needed it. And he was just so into the character, very much, very like, I can't imagine anybody else playing Agent Thurgood. Like, he was just so good,
Yeah.
and so grounded. And then, Billy Forsythe. He what a man. Not only,
Yeah.
I mean, not only was he just an amazing actor to work with, you know, and work off of, but he just had so much wealth and knowledge about the industry and had so many stories, and he was just so willing to to give them to both Chris and I. Like, he would sit with us during our breaks, and he would just tell us stories of when he did this film and that film, and he was so encouraging. Like, he kept on telling me how great I was doing, and how, he was like, I'm lucky to have a partner like you. And like, he was
Wow.
so nice. And I remember there was my favorite memory of the entire shoot was, we were doing a scene. It was just him and I. And at one point, I don't remember if Lou said that we should improvise, or we were just kind of like running lines and riffing off each other. And they had the camera running, and we were just kind of improvising something. And the line is actually in the film. But we were rehearsing it, and then they heard it, and they were like, "Oh, this has to be in the film." But we were rehearsing it, we were like improving, and I said something, and literally he's in the scene, and he breaks, and he starts like laughing, and I was like, "Oh my god, what did I do?" And he was just like, "That was good, that was good." And I was like, "I did it. I made William Forsythe break." He thought I was, he thought he was good. And then the line ended up staying on in the film, which I was very, very excited about. It's a very silly line, but it was just like, he was just so, he loved that we had that rapport, to be able to just kind of like, anytime we weren't shooting, we were running lines, and we were, talking about it and talking about moments. And that scene in the end where he comes in, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give anything away, but there's a scene at the very end of the film, where it's, his last scene with me. And he just kept on saying, he's like, "Wow, you're just like great." He's like, "I can't believe you're doing this. It's so good. It's so good." And like, we were
And
just
you know the
so,
cool thing about that too? I tell you this, Diana, I think what's so cool about that is that William Forsythe is not a bullshitter. You
no,
know, he's gonna tell you exactly what he thinks all the time. He's just that. That's just who he is.
yeah,
It's almost like when we see him on screen, that's him. He's one of those actors, like he's like almost playing like himself. And
yeah,
he's he does come across as intense. And it's funny because he's so well known for playing a bad guy all the time that people sleep on the fact that when he goes into the hero mode, he's really formidable, really intense.
yeah,
And I just think, and he's not gonna blow smoke. He's gonna
no,
tell you what to think. If you're not up to his par, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, he's gonna let you know about that.
yeah,
So the fact that he came over there and telling you exactly that, I mean, it's not just him just saying, good job, patting you on your back. 1,000%, he meant every word he said.
yeah. Thank you. I mean, I felt so fortunate. I felt so fortunate, and he was just so gracious with me, and with his time, and his knowledge, and just he was just amazing. And it was such a pleasure. I feel like I learned so much, and just so many choices. Like, everything he did was so specific and so real and so on it, that it was a beautiful thing to experience in person, but also just to be able to act off of. And I definitely think that I took every piece of knowledge that he gave me into my work moving forward. I've often told Lou, I'm like, "Oh, I wish that we could have just reshot it all over again with all the things that I learned during the film," because it was such a beautiful experience working
Now,
with him.
let me ask you this question. Is this a type of performance when you do a role like that with a veteran actor like William Forsythe? Is it one of those times where after you guys get done your scene and he raps, is it proper or appropriate to walk up to him or him walk up to you and sit there and exchange like email or phone numbers and sit there and say, hey, if you need anything, like in the future, call me. Like if you have any acting questions or anything in the business that you may not have seen before that maybe he has. Is it a is it do you feel comfortable walking up to a peer like that and just asking for an email address or a phone number, or is that just like once it's over with you walk away from it?
Well, I didn't have to ask because he offered. So we did stay in contact for a very long time. Fun fact about him is that I don't know if that's still the case now. It's been a little while since the last time we spoke, but he actually does have a flip phone. He refuses to have a modern phone. So getting in touch with him sometimes could be a little difficult, but he was just like text me anytime. And there were a couple times where I really needed his help with certain things in the business and just like some advice, and he always got back to me, whether it was like right at that moment or a few days later. Like he was very gracious with his time and with wanting to like share whatever knowledge that he had with both Chris and myself.
Okay. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Man, this is a lot of fun. I want to talk before I get to Serenade, though. I want to talk about something I think is important to you.
Sure.
Um, and that is you are a working Latina actress. Um, how do you feel? How do you feel? Do you feel like a role model? Because I notice in a lot of your social media, you promote that on your hashtags, Latina, working out. How important is that to you in your work?
I,
And to let people know this is who you are. I am a working Latina actor. How important is that to you that people know that?
I think it's very important because I think that in general, it's you don't see many Latinas on screen, and a lot of the times the roles tend to be very stereotypical
Yeah.
and very, like, the maids or somebody who's very loud and very rambunctious, and and those are great roles, but that's not everything. And I've been very fortunate in the career that I have, that the characters that I play are characters that it doesn't matter what ethnicity they are. They're human, and I get to play human characters, and I'm a Latina that gets to do that. And I know that that's a privilege that I've been able to have in my career. And I love to like show up for people that other Latinos in the community, because it's so important to see representation and to see yourself on screen, and know that like it's such a beautiful concept. Like we as a culture are all a melting pot of different ethnicities and different backgrounds and different cultures. And at the end of the day, we're telling stories that mean so much to anybody of whatever background. So I think that that's why I love to like be super prideful of my ethnicity, where I come from, who I am, because I really am just I'm a small town girl from a town in Hialeah, in Florida, who's like doing what she can to live her dream, and I just feel very fortunate that I get to do that.
The reason I asked that because we had a discussion. In fact, I'm sure we're going to be discussing it again, and I might reach out to you for this one too. I might reach out. I might have something up my sleeve here.
Sure.
But we were talking about a movie called Gothica, and it came out over 20 years ago, and it had Haley Berry, and Haley Berry is she's the lead in the movie. And I was watching the movie. In fact, I was thinking about it when I was watching Nine Windows, and I'm thinking about it going like, because she was like, it was like I'm sitting there going like, you know what? This is the first time I ever seen an African American woman ever lead a horror film, be a lead actress. I watched the film and reviewed it on my channel, and I'm rewatching it. And I'm thinking, I'm like, I can't. I'm trying. I was really busting my ass trying to think of like, have I seen anything since Gothica where there's been an African American actress lead the movie. I really struggle with it. When I was watching Nine Windows, I'm going like, this is the first time I've seen a Latina lead a horror movie. Here it is, 2024, and why the hell am I saying that? This is the first time I've seen a Latina lead an American-made horror film. I'm sure there's some down in, I know for sure there's some down in South America. I've seen those, but I'm talking about here in America. It's like, why can't we get that more? You know, because it's so rare.
Yeah.
I mean, do you? I mean, do you get the sense of history here with this movie? Because I really can't think of anybody else that's doing what you're doing. That's American, you know, like an American Latino actor.
Well,
I can't. I can't think of it.
I'm honored. I mean, I think that with talking about it with Lou, that was really important to her. She's from a Cuban descent, and she
Hmm.
really wanted a Latina lead for it because nothing in the script said that she can't be. And I think that that's what's so beautiful about it is that it's just, yeah, we're telling stories, and the story has nothing to do with ethnicity. It has to do with something completely different. And why can't someone who's a Latina be her, you know? So I feel very, very fortunate and very lucky that I got to have
I
this.
I I was thinking, when I was watching it, I just had a sense of that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go see. Now I've seen Latinos lead in thrillers and action pieces, but horror is different.
Yeah.
Horror is like it's different. Yeah, yes, I could think of, right at the top of my head, I could think of, Selma Hayek has done several adventure movies, central action movies, but everybody has done that. Everybody has done that. I mean, you can't sit there and say there's a shortage of anybody doing that type of movie. But when it comes down to doing something like horror movies, all of a sudden that just dries up. It's like, oh yeah, you could do action, you could shoot a gun, but when it comes down to being scared or all of a sudden, it seems like Hollywood just has the talent pool suddenly dry up, and
Yeah.
it's like the worst thing ever because it's like you watch Nine Windows, it's not that you focus that you are, it's just the fact that you are there. You are leading the movie. It's your movie. You're carrying the whole damn movie. Now, and you got great support, but it's still about Liza. It's still you, and we just don't see that enough. And so I just wanted to know what your thoughts about that were.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's just it's incredible, and I think that I mean, I know that the new Scream movies, which are a little more mainstream, have Melissa Barrera, who's also Mexican. I'm Mexican as well, but it we are living in a time where the representation for Latinas and strong Latinas, because I think that that's something about Liza in particular that it's not she's not she's not really a damsel in distress, you know.
no.
She's someone who's very flawed but also a very strong, um brave person. And I feel very fortunate to be able to do a role like that because I don't find that there's many roles like that for Latina women.
Yeah, like I said, I see the door opening big for you after this movie. I really do. Between the subject matter, the great casting, the great direction, I really see this for you. Um, and I want to talk a little bit about the Serenade Charade before I let you go.
Oh,
Um, let's talk a little bit about that. Now, this movie, you've actually won some awards for this. I've been seeing your name pop up with Serenade Charade. So tell us a little bit. It's not out yet, though, right?
it's not.
It's the plan.
It's doing a festival circuit right now. So it should hopefully be coming out at the end of 2025, I believe is the projected release date. But
Well,
I don't have a specific date yet. I know for a fact that it'll be available to watch and to stream, but it won't be until the end of next year because it's doing its festival routes. That film is very, very, very exciting for me because we shot that film in 5 days, and that is unheard of. It's a 90-page script, and we shot it in 5 days, and it was quite the terrifying adventure to do. But the film is about basically there's this big Hollywood producer who is doing a new film, and she hires a music composer and invites her over to dinner. And it's basically a thriller. We find out it's a film that has a lot of twists and turns, and I feel like I can't even say much without giving something away. But it's definitely a thriller with turns in every direction. Like, you really don't expect the things that happen. But one thing that I loved about this film is it's one of those films for me that we had to do so much prep work. It was different in the sense that I knew months in advance that I was going to do this film. So it gave me a chance to really get into the character before going into this very stressful 5-day shooting schedule. Me and we're two co-leads. We would actually have like regular meetings on the phone and over Zoom, because she's in Arizona, I'm in Florida, and we were shooting in LA. And just to get to know each other, to run lines so that it would run smoothly once we were shooting. But it is definitely one of those films that it's meant to watch more than once. You're meant to watch it the first time and see and have all these like shocking moments of like these twists and turns and these reveals. There's a lot of reveals in the film. And then it's meant to watch again, knowing these reveals and seeing how we both work in these reveals, because it's we're basically one-upping each other the entire time, and there's an agenda from both of us the entire time, and you don't necessarily know that until you finish the film the
It
first time.
sounds a little bit when I was looking at it, it sounded to me a little bit like Mousetrap.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Mousetrap. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of Mousetrap. I'm going like, and that's a great movie. I mean, holy crow, that's a classic right there.
Yeah.
Because I love movies like that. I love the twisty ones. I
You
wanted to
know,
say real quick about we're talking about the leading Latina actress, and Ferry just mentioned Melissa Becerra in Scream.
Pare.
But I will sit there and say this: I think Scream is much more of an ensemble. It's an ensemble cast. There's no
Mhm.
one lead in that movie. There's no one particular person. There's a lot of people there. The movie is evenly distributed among all the cast because it's a huge cast,
Right.
including Dermot Mulroney. So it's no taking away from Melissa here. Not taking anything away from her at all. But you carry your movie. It's on you. I mean, it's the focus is on you. It's all with. I mean, look at you take away Melissa, which they have, or she helps herself anyway.
Mhm.
You take away Melissa from Scream, the movie's still going to move forward. The franchise is still going to move forward.
Right.
You can't take if you take Liza away, you don't have a movie.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I meant by that. Um, not any disrespect to Melissa. I mean, she's a fine actress in her own right,
Yeah, we love
but
her.
yeah, I mean, it's just I was just thinking about just how you were cast as the leading role in the leading role for the Fort Nine Window. Um, yeah, so Mousetrap, and now you've been winning some acting awards. Are these the first? Is this the first time that you've won awards for your acting?
No, actually, I've been very lucky to have won multiple awards. Mostly a lot of stuff for theater things that I've done, a lot of stage things. But last year around this time, I won for best lead role in a play that was down here, and it did really well. And this is the first time that I win an award for something that I really felt like I put in a lot of work, like I was like, like a lot of the times, you win awards and you're like, wow, I'm so grateful. And you always put the work in. But I think with Serenade Charade, it was very much such a collaborative experience, and we knew that we were doing it in 5 days. So we all had to have all hands, all veins, every piece of drop of blood, ready to go.
Mm.
And I was just so proud to win this award for this film because there was so much prep work and so much love that came from that character that I was so grateful for the
Yeah, it's
recognition.
gotta be but it's gotta be a little bit frustrating though too at the same time knowing that that work and that award-winning work is is not gonna come out to the end of 2025. I mean, it's like, you put so much into it, and then you have to worry about it for the whole year, and you're sitting there and you want to tell people like, "Listen, I did a great job with this movie. Everybody did a great job, but I can't show you to the end of all of next year." It's like,
That's how I feel about Nine Windows. I'm telling we shot it in 2021, and so it's been years since since we've shot it, and I have been like on the edge of my seat, being like, Lou, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? When are we doing this? And so I'm just so excited to see what happens when people watch Nine Windows because I think it's so fun and it's so exciting, and I think that yeah, I've been waiting for it. I've been waiting for people to be able to see it. Like nobody's seen it.
well, I
So
tell you one thing, it's going to be if Charade hasn't got a distributor yet, if it doesn't have a distributor yet, it will after Nine Windows comes out. There's
so
people, there's someone's gonna come by and pick that up. They're gonna say, "That's a rising star. I wanna be." Because studios are like that too. Let's just be honest. Distributors and studios, they like that. They like to be the ones that discover. Because that's
right.
one thing Hollywood rarely ever does anymore these days is discover people.
Mhm.
They really don't. It's not like the old days with Discovery. Now it's like, and that's what studios actively did that. They actually looked for new stars. I think the last, gosh, Glenn Powell probably a good example of Hollywood star, making a star, and discovering and making a star, the old-fashioned way, crafted movies, certain leading roles. He's more than talented enough to step into it. That's why he's doing so well. But you rarely see that anymore, though.
Mhm.
I'm glad to see that the Nine Windows, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see what happens when this movie comes out, and I dare say your phone will be ringing a little bit more in 20.
Here's hoping. Here's
Um,
hoping. I'm
uh,
fully free right now going forward, so I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from Nine Windows.
well, Nine Widows comes out, I believe, on the 22nd, if I'm
The
not
15th.
mistaken. Huh? On
The
the
15th.
18th. Okay.
The 15th.
Uh, on the 15th, and it comes out on Gravitas Ventures. I do believe that they will be putting that on physical media as well as streaming services. Gravitas, I'm really impressed that they're moving into Gravitas is moving into horror. Most of the
Yeah.
time they've done small indies. I've got a ton of their films here from the small indie films they've worked on, dramas. But this is like the third. You're like the third actor that I've talked to from a Gravitas Ventures film within this month, and
Oh,
so
cool.
it's very cool to see them sliding on over to putting out some good horror movies, suspense movies, and they should. I hope they keep good doing that because it's working for them so far. Does anybody have any questions for our? Yes. Okay. Yes. And quite honestly, that is exactly the same thing as Halle Berry. Renee mentions Jennifer Lopez in The Cell. Yes, yes, Jennifer. But I was actually thinking, what has she done since then, as far as or anybody else has done since then? Because it's the same thing with Halle Berry. I watched her in Gothic, and I'm saying, okay, I'm remembering. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to pull up another movie. And you're right, Jennifer Lopez did do The Cell, but she's done more drama and more action movies since then. I don't think and I don't, like I said, I don't, between now and then, I can't really remember any American Latino actress coming up there and being asked to carry the film. Um, Maybe Jenna Ortega might be, but even then, even if you look at Jenna Ortega now, it's like she's done some great roles, but as far as
Yes,
leading a horror film goes, Still has not done that yet. I mean, the Addams Family is a great, but it's an ensemble film. It really is.
And it's a
Um,
series versus a film. I think that that also makes a big difference.
but yeah, that's interesting. It's a good call though, because I love The Cell. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a fantastic film. All right. Any questions for our guest Diana Garle tonight before we let her go? I do have something up my sleeve too. I'm going to tell you about it off camera. Um, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to. Question, Diana. Have you ever seen Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Speaking of the wheelchair.
I have
Yeah.
not actually. I have not,
Um,
but I have to check it out.
I do believe, I don't know if James Stewart was in a chair or a wheelchair in the first Rear Window.
He
I
was.
haven't seen it. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was.
Okay.
He was.
Do you remember the killer? Who the killer was?
I don't remember his name, but I watched it
So
recently.
so 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 this is you'll love this twist. So the killer in the original Rear Window was Raymond Burr. Raymond Burr was the original killer. He was the killer in Rear Window. Raymond Burr went on to do a TV series called Ironsides, which was
Mhm.
about a police chief that was crippled and wheeled around in a wheelchair. How about that for some Kevin Bacon stuff right there?
Bacon, that's what I was saying.
Kevin Bacon types 6 degree stuff. All right, we have hit our window. I want to thank everybody for coming out in the chat. Thank you so much for coming out and supporting the show. We've had a great week. I can't thank you enough, Diana, for you to come out here. I'm so glad you and yours are safe from the hurricane. I can't wait to talk to you again. I can't wait to talk to Lou next week to get her side of nine windows. I'm sure it's gonna be fascinating. I sent her a connection to here, so hopefully she'll watch it. And hopefully everybody else will watch it as well, like you have. I appreciate it. Drop comments down below. Joan Crawford and Baby Jane. Yeah, that's a great movie. Iron Sipes was great too. Um, yeah, thank you so much for coming out. And to the chat, we will see you tomorrow. I'll be on the road. I'll put it in my community tab, by the way. I'll put it in my community tab. I'll be on the road tomorrow. I'll be heading over to another channel, the Mad Bloods, and we will be talking about the pilot for The Fugitive from 1960, starring David Jansen. We'll be discussing that over there, and then I'll be back here next Tuesday at 8 o'clock to talk to the artist Meredith the Great. And that'll be at 8 o'clock. And I want to thank you guys all for coming out and supporting me because I wouldn't be here without you. Stay right where you're at. Stay right where you're at, Diana. And to the chat, I'm out of here. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Peace.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.